I've spent 70 years studying one question, not which stocks to buy, not how to read financial statements, not how to value businesses. I've spent 70 years studying why smart people do stupid things with money, and I've found the answer. It's not in the mathematics, it's not in the economics textbooks, it's not in the Wall Street research reports, it's in the psychology, the deep, ancient, hardwired psychology that every human being carries in their skull. This psychology is not taught in business schools. It's not discussed in investment seminars. It's not covered in the finance curriculum. And that's the greatest failure of financial education, because you can learn every valuation technique ever invented. You can memorize every ratio, every formula, every model. You can study the greatest investors and read every book they've written, and you will still fail. You will still make catastrophic mistakes. You will still buy high and sell low and wonder what happened. Unless you understand the psychology. Warren and I have watched thousands of intelligent people destroy their wealth. PhDs, MBAs, successful entrepreneurs, people who built real businesses and demonstrated real competence. And then they did something monumentally stupid with their investments. Something that a child could have told them was wrong. Something that violated basic common sense. Why? Because their brains betrayed them. Because evolution designed a brain for surviving on the savannah, not for navigating financial markets. Because every instinct that kept your ancestors alive is now working against your portfolio. Today I'm going to teach you the psychology of money that no one teaches, the hidden forces that control your financial decisions, the mental traps that have destroyed more wealth than every market crash combined. This is not entertainment. This is survival knowledge. Pay attention. Let me start with a fundamental truth that most people never accept. Your brain is your enemy. Not your friend, not your ally, your enemy. When it comes to investing, every instinct you have is wrong. Every natural reaction leads to losses. Every gut feeling pushes you toward disaster. This isn't a flaw in you personally. It's a flaw in the human operating system. We're all running on software that was written for a different world. Your brain evolved over millions of years, and for 99.9% of that time, there were no stock markets, no compound interest, no long-term investments. There was only survival, day to day, threat to threat, meal to meal. Your ancestors lived in a world of immediate dangers. A rustle in the grass could be a lion. A stranger from another tribe could be a killer. A missed meal could mean death. In that world, the brain developed certain tendencies. React quickly to threats. Follow the crowd for safety. Remember bad experiences more vividly than good ones. Take the sure thing over the gamble. These tendencies kept your ancestors alive long enough to reproduce. They're the reason you exist today. But now you're using that same brain to make investment decisions, and it's catastrophically mismatched. The rustle in the grass is now a red day in the market. Your brain screams, danger, run away, sell everything. But the right move is usually to do nothing, or buy more. The crowd running in one direction is now everyone buying the hot stock. Your brain screams, follow them, safety in numbers. But the crowd is usually wrong at extremes. The sure thing your brain prefers is the savings account earning nothing. The gamble it fears is the stock market that historically returns 10% a year. Everything is inverted. Every instinct is backwards. Every natural reaction is wrong. And yet people trust their instincts. They say, I go with my gut. They say, I have a feeling about this investment. Your gut is an idiot when it comes to money. Your feelings are liars. They were programmed for a world that no longer exists. The first step to investment success is accepting this truth. You are not rational. You are not objective. You are a bundle of biases and instincts that evolution designed for a completely different purpose. Once you accept this, you can start building systems to protect yourself from yourself. That's what the rest of this talk is about. Let me tell you about the most powerful bias in human psychology. It's called loss aversion. Here's what it means. The pain of losing something is approximately twice as powerful as the pleasure of gaining the same thing. If I give you $100, you feel good. If I take $100 from you, you feel bad. But the bad feeling is twice as intense as the good feeling. The experiences are not symmetrical. This has been proven in countless experiments. It's consistent across cultures, ages, and education levels. It's hardwired into the human brain, and it destroys investors. Let me show you how. Imagine you own two stocks. Stock A has gone up 50% since you bought it. Stock B has gone down 50%. You need cash and have to sell one. Which do you sell? Most people sell stock A. They take the profit, they lock in the gain. It feels good to realize a winner, but think about what this means. Stock A is your winner. It's going up, it's working, and you're selling it. Stock B is your loser. It's going down, it's broken, and you're keeping it. You're cutting your flowers and watering your weeds. Why? Because selling stock B would mean admitting you were wrong. It would mean realizing the loss. It would mean feeling that pain. And your brain will do almost anything to avoid that pain. Even hold on to a terrible investment for years. Even watch it go to zero. Anything to avoid admitting the loss. This is insane behavior, but it's standard. It's what most investors do most of the time. I've watched people hold losing positions for decades. They'll tell you elaborate stories about why the stock will come back. They'll rationalize endlessly. They'll refuse to look at the statement because seeing the loss is too painful. Meanwhile, their winning positions got sold long ago, locked in small profits while the stocks continued climbing without them. Loss aversion also explains panic selling during crashes. When the market drops 30%, the pain is overwhelming. It's twice as powerful as any gain you've experienced. Your brain is screaming that you're losing everything, that you need to stop the bleeding, that you need to get out now. So people sell at the bottom. They lock in their losses at the worst possible moment. Then they watch the market recover without them. In 2008 and 2009, I watched intelligent people sell everything near the bottom and then never get back in. They couldn't bring themselves to buy because buying would mean admitting they were wrong to sell. They sat in cash while the market tripled. The pain of being wrong was worse than the pain of missing gains. This is loss aversion. It makes you hold losers and sell winners. It makes you panic at bottoms and stay out during recoveries. It makes every decision about avoiding pain instead of maximizing returns. The only solution is awareness and rules. You have to know this bias exists. You have to feel it operating in yourself. And you have to build rules that override it. Sell decisions should be based on fundamentals, not on whether you're up or down. If a business has deteriorated, sell it whether you're at a profit or loss. If a business is excellent, hold it whether you're at a profit or loss. The price you paid is irrelevant, it's gone. It's sunk cost. The only question is, would you buy this business today at today's price? But your brain doesn't think this way naturally. You have to force it. The next destroyer of wealth is social proof, the tendency to do what others are doing. In the ancestral environment, this was crucial for survival. If everyone in your tribe started running in one direction, you ran too. You didn't stop to analyze the situation. You didn't ask for data. You ran because maybe they saw a predator you didn't see. The people who stopped to think got eaten. The people who followed the crowd survived, so we're descended from followers. From people who trusted the group's judgment over their own. From people who felt safety in numbers. And in financial markets, this creates disasters. When everyone is buying, you want to buy. The fear of missing out is overwhelming. Your neighbor is making money. Your coworker is making money. Your idiot brother-in-law is making money. And you're sitting there with your conservative portfolio looking like a fool. So you buy. At the top, when prices are highest and future returns are lowest. Then when everyone is selling, you want to sell. The fear of being the last one out is overwhelming. Everyone else sees something you don't. If they're all selling, there must be a reason. You'll be the only idiot left holding. So you sell. At the bottom, when prices are lowest and future returns are highest. Buy high, sell low. The opposite of how you make money. And yet it's the natural human pattern because of social proof. I've watched this cycle repeat for 70 years. The names change, the specifics change, but the pattern is exactly the same. In the late 1990s, everyone was buying technology stocks. People who had never invested before were quitting their jobs to day trade. Taxi drivers were giving stock tips. Magazine covers were celebrating the new economy. And the smart people, the contrarians, the ones saying, "This doesn't make sense," they looked like idiots. For years, they looked like idiots while everyone else got rich. Then 2000 hit, and all those geniuses who had been mocking the cautious investors lost everything. The social proof that had made them feel so smart was revealed as mass delusion. But did people learn? No. A few years later, the same thing happened with housing. Everyone was buying houses to flip them. Everyone was getting rich in real estate. The skeptics were fools again. Then 2008 hit, and the same painful lesson was relearned. And it will happen again. It's happening now with various assets. And it will happen in the future with assets we can't even imagine yet. Because social proof never goes away. The human need to follow the crowd never disappears. Every generation thinks they're smarter than the last, and every generation falls for the same trap. Warren has a saying, be fearful when others are greedy, and greedy when others are fearful. It's simple advice. It's obviously correct. And it's almost impossible to follow because it requires fighting your deepest social instincts. When others are greedy, you feel left out. You feel stupid. You feel like you're missing the opportunity of a lifetime. Every fiber of your being wants to join them. When others are fearful, you feel terrified. You feel like the world is ending. You feel like only an idiot would buy when everything is falling apart. Going against the crowd feels like going against your tribe. It feels dangerous. It feels lonely. It feels wrong, even when it's right. The great investors learn to be comfortable with this loneliness. They learn to trust their own analysis over the crowd's behavior. They learn to actually enjoy being contrarian. But most people never develop this ability. They follow the herd to slaughter over and over until they have nothing left. Now let me tell you about the bias that keeps people trapped in bad investments. Confirmation bias. Here's what it means. You don't search for truth. You search for confirmation of what you already believe. Once you've made a decision, once you've taken a position, your brain starts filtering reality. Information that supports your position gets welcomed. Information that contradicts it gets rejected. You don't notice this happening. You think you're being objective. You think you're evaluating evidence fairly, but you're not. Your brain is running a rigged game. This is why people stay in bad investments for years. This is why they ignore obvious warning signs. This is why they're always surprised when things go wrong. Let me give you an example. You buy a stock because you believe the company is well managed. A few months later, the CEO makes a questionable decision. How do you react? If you didn't own the stock, you might think, that's a red flag. But because you own it, your brain works to explain it away. He must know something we don't. One bad decision doesn't matter. Every CEO makes mistakes. You're not evaluating the decision. You're defending your position. More evidence comes in. The company misses earnings. A key executive leaves. Competition is intensifying. A neutral observer would see a pattern of deterioration. But you're not neutral. You own the stock. So you find ways to dismiss each piece of evidence. You focus on the positives. You seek out other investors who agree with you. You avoid reading negative analysis. Meanwhile, the stock keeps dropping. The evidence keeps mounting. But you keep holding because admitting you're wrong is psychologically impossible. I've watched people ride stocks down 90% while coming up with new rationalizations at every stage. At down 10%, they said it was a buying opportunity. At down 30%, they said the market was wrong. At down 50%, they said it was too late to sell now. At down 90%, they said they might as well hold for the lottery ticket. Every stage had a rationalization. Every stage felt logical at the time. But the common thread was confirmation bias, the desperate need to avoid admitting error. The most dangerous investor is someone who's smart enough to construct elaborate rationalizations. They can always find a reason to keep holding. They can always explain away the negatives. Their intelligence becomes a liability because it's devoted to defending mistakes. How do you fight confirmation bias? First, you actively seek out the opposite case. Before you invest in anything, find the smartest person who disagrees and understand their argument completely, not to dismiss it, to genuinely consider it. I spend as much time thinking about why I might be wrong as why I might be right, maybe more. Because being wrong is the expensive case. Being right takes care of itself. Second, you establish criteria in advance for when you'll sell. What would have to happen for this investment to be wrong? Write it down before you buy. Then when those things happen, you have a commitment to honor. It's harder to rationalize when you're breaking a promise to yourself. Third, you regularly review your mistakes, not to punish yourself, to learn. What did you miss? What bias was operating? How can you prevent it next time? Most people never do this. They bury their mistakes and move on. And so they make the same mistakes forever. The goal is not to eliminate confirmation bias. You can't. It's hardwired. The goal is to build systems that account for it, to know it's there, and work around it. The fifth psychology trap is overconfidence, and this one is epidemic. Here's a famous finding. When you ask people if they're above average drivers, about 80% say yes. Think about that. 80% believe they're better than average. Mathematically, only 50% can be above average. So at minimum, 30% are wrong about themselves. But it's probably worse than that. The ones who think they're slightly above average are probably about average. The ones who think they're average are probably below average. Almost everyone is wrong in the direction of thinking they're better than they are. This applies to every domain, investing especially. Most investors think they can beat the market. Most traders think they have an edge. Most people who pick stocks think they're skilled at it. The data says otherwise. The majority of professional fund managers underperform simple index funds, and these are professionals with resources, training, and access that regular investors don't have. If the professionals can't beat the market, what makes you think you can? But people don't think about it this way. They think they're special. They think they see things others don't. They think their strategy is different. This overconfidence leads to disastrous behavior. It leads to overtrading. If you're confident in your ability, why not trade more? Why not try to time the market? Every transaction feels like an opportunity to demonstrate your skill, but every transaction has costs, commissions, spreads, taxes, and the more you trade, the more you pay. Studies show that the most active traders perform the worst. Their confidence destroys them. It leads to concentration. If you're confident in your pick, why diversify? Why spread your money across many investments when you found the winner? So people concentrate their portfolios in their best ideas. Sometimes they're right and they make a fortune. More often they're wrong and they lose everything. Diversification feels like an admission of uncertainty. Confident people don't like uncertainty. It leads to ignoring advice. If you're confident in your judgment, why listen to others? Why read warnings? Why consider that you might be wrong? I've met many intelligent people who destroyed themselves because they couldn't accept input from others. They were so sure they were right that they isolated themselves from any contradicting information. Here's the paradox. The best investors I've known are actually quite humble. They're uncertain about most things. They know how much they don't know. They worry constantly about being wrong. Warren is the most successful investor in history, and he spends most of his time thinking about what could go wrong. He's not confident in his predictions. He's confident in his process and his patience, but humble about specific outcomes. The confident ones, the ones who stride around talking about their incredible returns and their special insights, those are usually the ones who blow up eventually. Confidence is a feeling. It has nothing to do with reality. Feeling confident about an investment tells you nothing about whether it will work. Learn to distrust your confidence. When you feel absolutely certain about something, treat it as a warning sign, not a green light. The universe doesn't care how confident you feel. Now I want to talk about envy. This one is personal. This one damages not just your portfolio, but your life. Envy has destroyed more wealth than every market crash combined. And not just wealth, it's destroyed happiness, relationships, health. It's a psychological cancer. Here's how envy works in investing. You have a strategy, it's working. You're making 8% a year, which is solid. You're on track to meet your goals. You should be satisfied. Then you hear about someone else making 50% a year. Some friend or colleague or person on the internet. They bought the right crypto or the right tech stock or the right meme investment. Suddenly your 8% feels pathetic. Suddenly you feel like a failure. Suddenly your working strategy seems broken and you want to abandon it for whatever they're doing. This is insane. Your situation didn't change. Your strategy didn't change. Only your comparison point changed. And now you're miserable and tempted to do something stupid. Envy makes you abandon working strategies. It makes you chase whatever is hot right now. It makes you take risks that don't make sense for your situation. I've seen people with perfectly good portfolios blow them up because they couldn't stand watching someone else get rich faster. They didn't need the extra returns, they didn't need the risk, but their envy demanded action. Here's what I've learned. There will always be someone doing better than you. Always. No matter how well you do, someone else will do better in any given period. Warren became the most successful investor in history, and even he had years where other people did better. Every bull market produces some speculator who outperformed Berkshire that year. Some of them outperformed dramatically. Does that mean Warren should have changed his approach? Of course not. The speculators who beat him one year were usually broke 5 years later. Their returns were luck mistaken for skill. But if Warren had been envious, if he had chased their returns, he would have destroyed himself just like they did. The game of wealth is played against yourself, not against others. Your goal is to meet your needs, achieve your goals, secure your future, not to beat the person next to you. This is hard to accept because we're social creatures. We constantly compare ourselves to others. We feel our status relative to our peer group, not in absolute terms. A person making $200,000 in a neighborhood where everyone makes $100,000 feels rich. The same person making $200,000 in a neighborhood where everyone makes $1 million feels poor. Nothing changed about their situation. Only the comparison changed. And yet the psychological effect is enormous. You have to opt out of the comparison game. You have to define your own goals and measure yourself only against them. You have to genuinely not care what others are making. This is one of the hardest psychological achievements. It requires constant vigilance. Because envy doesn't announce itself. It disguises itself as ambition, as motivation, as reasonable dissatisfaction. But the result is always the same. It makes you abandon what's working to chase what someone else has. When you feel envy, recognize it, name it, and then remember that person's situation has nothing to do with yours. Their returns don't affect your returns. Their wealth doesn't diminish your wealth. The only person you should compare yourself to is yourself yesterday. Are you making progress? Are you on track? Is your strategy sound? If yes, then it doesn't matter what anyone else is doing. Stay the course. I've spent this talk describing the diseases. Now let me give you some cures. Not perfect cures. There are none. But tools that help. The first tool is inversion. Most people think about how to succeed. They ask, what should I do to get rich? This is natural but limited. Inversion means thinking backwards. Instead of asking how to succeed, ask how to fail. Then avoid those things. What destroys portfolios? Panic selling, leverage, concentration, chasing fads, high fees, frequent trading. Avoid all of those and you're ahead of most investors already. You don't need to be brilliant. You just need to not be stupid. Warren and I have a saying, it's remarkable how much long-term advantage we've gotten by trying to be consistently not stupid instead of trying to be very intelligent. Invert, always invert. Ask what you're trying to avoid, not just what you're trying to achieve. The avoiding is often more important. The second tool is the circle of competence. Everyone has areas they understand and areas they don't. The disasters happen when people invest outside their understanding. I don't invest in technology businesses I can't understand. I don't invest in foreign countries with systems I don't know. I don't invest in complex financial instruments that require advanced mathematics. Not because these things are bad. Some people understand them well and make fortunes, but I don't understand them. And investing in things you don't understand is gambling. Know what you know what you don't know, and stay within the circle of what you know. This requires humility. It means admitting there are things you don't understand. It means watching opportunities pass that fall outside your circle. It means accepting that others will sometimes make money on things you can't participate in. But it also means you won't lose money on things you don't understand. And not losing money is the foundation of making money. The third tool is checklists. Pilots use checklists. Surgeons use checklists. These are highly trained professionals doing things they've done thousands of times. And they still use checklists because they know that human memory and attention are unreliable. Investors should use checklists too. A list of questions to ask before any investment. A list of warning signs to check. A list of criteria that must be met. The checklist fights against your biases. When you're excited about an investment, the checklist makes you slow down. When you're rushing to buy, the checklist forces you to verify each item. I have a checklist I've developed over decades. It includes obvious things and non-obvious things. Things I've learned from my own mistakes and from watching others make mistakes. The checklist doesn't guarantee success, but it prevents the most common failures. It catches the errors that enthusiasm would miss. The fourth tool is pre-commitment. Before you invest, decide what would make you sell. Write it down. Be specific. I will sell if the company loses market share for 3 consecutive quarters. I will sell if the CEO leaves. I will sell if the thesis changes in this specific way. Then when those things happen, you've already made the decision. You don't have to fight your biases in the moment. You just honor your past commitment. This is how you beat confirmation bias, by making decisions when you're rational and binding yourself to them before you become irrational. The fifth tool is regular review. Set aside time to review your mistakes, not just your losses. Sometimes you'll make money despite being wrong. Review the process, not the outcome. What did you miss? What bias was operating? What would you do differently? Most people hate this exercise because it's painful, but the pain is the point. You want to feel the cost of mistakes so you avoid them in the future. The investors who review their errors improve. The investors who bury their errors repeat them forever. Let me bring this together. I've described 7 psychological forces that destroy wealth: loss aversion, social proof, confirmation bias, overconfidence, envy, the evolutionary brain. And there are more I haven't mentioned. These are not occasional problems. They operate constantly. Every day in every decision, these forces are pushing you toward bad outcomes. You can't eliminate them. They're hardwired. They're part of being human. But you can recognize them. You can build systems that account for them. You can create rules that protect you from yourself. The irony of investing is that your greatest enemy is not the market. It's not the economy. It's not the other investors. It's you. The battle is internal. The victories and defeats happen in your own psychology. I've watched people with every advantage destroy themselves. Intelligence, education, capital, access. They had it all, and their psychology betrayed them. I've watched people with no advantages build fortunes. Nothing special about their background or their intellect. But they understood themselves. They knew their weaknesses. They built systems that worked. The second group outperformed the first, consistently across decades. Because investing success is not about being smart. It's about being wise. And wisdom means knowing how little you know, how biased you are, how likely you are to make mistakes. The person who says, I make bad decisions when I'm emotional, so I'll build rules to prevent emotional decisions, will beat the person who says, I'm smart and rational, I don't need rules. The person who says, I don't know which investments will work, so I'll diversify, will beat the person who says, I know this one will work, so I'll concentrate. The person who says, I might be wrong, so I'll seek out opposing views, will beat the person who says, I'm right, so I'll ignore the critics. Self-awareness beats intelligence. Systems beat willpower. Humility beats confidence. This is the psychology of money that no one teaches. Not because it's secret, but because it's uncomfortable. People don't want to hear that they're irrational. They don't want to hear that their instincts are wrong. They don't want to build systems that limit their freedom. They want to believe they're special, that they can beat the game through sheer mental power, that they don't need rules and checklists and constraints. And so they lose, again and again, wondering why success stays out of reach when they're doing everything right. They're not doing everything right. They're trusting a brain that wasn't designed for this game. They're fighting an enemy they refuse to acknowledge. The psychology is the foundation. Get it wrong, and nothing else matters. Get it right, and the technical stuff is almost secondary. I've talked for a long time today. Let me leave you with this. You will never become a great investor until you become a student of your own psychology. Until you sit with yourself honestly and ask, where am I biased? Where am I irrational? Where am I likely to make mistakes? This is uncomfortable work. It's easier to read another book about valuation techniques. It's easier to study another successful investor's methods. It's easier to focus on the external, but the external won't save you. The techniques won't save you. The methods won't save you. Not if your psychology is broken. The enemy is within. It's been with you since birth. It will be with you until death. And every day it's working against your financial success. You can ignore it. Most people do. And most people get the results that most people get, which is to say mediocre at best. Or you can face it, study it, build defenses against it, turn your greatest enemy into a manageable problem. That's what separates the great investors from everyone else. Not genius, not luck, not secret strategies, self-knowledge, self-discipline, self-protection from self-destruction. The psychology of money that no one teaches is really the psychology of yourself, and you're the only one who can learn it. Start today.